Two-dimensional arrays. A two-dimensional array you can think of as a table. It's got rows and it's got columns. So imagine this is a collection of marks. So student number 1 in course number 1 has a 67. So these are the rows and these are the columns. We always specify the row first and then the column. So if we have called this final grade, then the student number is the row and the course number is the column. And what you want to keep in mind is that computer likes to start counting at 0 and we start counting at 1. So let's take some examples. The final grade in position 0, 0 is 67. So yes, it's student number 1, but the computer likes to think of that as 0, 1, 2, 3. And this as 0, 1, 2, 3. So you just have to get used to how the computer thinks and how the human thinks. So in position 0, 0, 67 is the grade for student 1, course 1. Let's look at another. In position 2, 0. So that's row 2, column 0, there's a 78. The way the human being thinks of it as student 3 and course number 1. The final grade in position 2, 4. So 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 72. Human being likes to think of it as student 3, course number 5. Final grade in position 7, 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would be an 80. The human being likes to think of it as student 8, course number 5. And you might ask yourself, why did computer scientists do this? The big answer is we think of this as the top left-hand corner. And you're asking yourself, how far over and how far down did you get to the first number? And you didn't. You were already at the first number. So if this is in the top left-hand corner, the displacement is 0, 0 from that position. And then everything else is displaced from there. So when we go to number 78, it's displaced 1, 2 down, but over nothing. When we go to 72, we're displaced 1, 2 down, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 over. And that's why these numbers are always 1 off compared to the computer and the human being. So what you want to get out of this, you specify 2 things now, and it is always the row first and then the column. So the array, 2 square brackets, in the first square bracket the row, and the second one the column. Now, putting information into a 2-dimensional array, you can do it directly, just like we did with 1 dimensions. Just make sure you start your 2-dimensional array and end your 2-dimensional array, and then each row is contained in a collection of brackets. I like to line them up just so I can see where things are, but the computer doesn't actually care. Now, if you're going into 2 dimensions, and we used 1 loop for 1 dimension, we're going to use 2 loops for 2 dimensions. How do we do that? Well, let's take a look. We have an array called term marks. There are 3 by 5 in the array. We're going to say the student is the row, and that's going from 0 to 3. Give the user something to do. Enter the grades for student number, student plus 1. And again, the plus 1 is for the sake of the human. And then inside the loop, we're going to change the course number, give them a little more information saying we're going to print or enter the grade for the course plus 1. And then the mark goes directly into student and course. So how does this work? So we've got a 3 by 5 array. So 3 rows, 5 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3 rows. Rows 0, 1, 2, columns 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So Starting at 0, staying less than 3, that does 0, 1, 2. Starting at 0, staying less than 5, that does 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Student is going to start at 0. Course is also going to start at 0. Okay, then what happens? Then we ask for a grade for student number 1, okay, which the computer thinks is a student 0, and it's saying put in the grade for course 1. So let's say the grade for that one is 7. And then we're staying with this row, we're staying with student 0, and we're changing all the courses. So student 0 has a 7, a 1, a 5, a 6, and a 3. Once we get to 5, we come back and we loop up here, and then we say, okay, we've done all the courses for that student. Let's go on to student number 1. Again, start at 0 for the courses and put in the grades for the next student. So 2, 3, 9, 8, 7. So what's going is the courses are going 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then when we get to the 5, we loop back up. We say the student moves up 1, so we're now on student 2, according to the computer, which is the third one for us. Courses start back at 0, and we enter some more grades. 5, 2, 1, 7, 4. So in terms of the programming, make sure it's a loop within a loop. This for loop is changing the student. This for loop is changing the courses. So we're holding the student constant, entering 5 course marks, and then moving on to the next student. So a loop within a loop, make sure you know which bracket ends which for loop. And 2-dimensional array uses 2 loops. If we did 3, we'd have 3 loops. So printing the information, guess what? We're going to have 2 loops. We do essentially what we did with the previous program. This time, instead of inputting, it's all output. And that would print the array that we just created. So you're in assignment 8. 8A is pretty much creating an array, and you'll know the variables, so you put the information in. And then you're going to ask the user for some information. You want to know what student and what course. So ask them 3 questions. Which student, which course, and then what is the new mark? So what do you need to do to make this program work? You need to create an array. So that would be this one. Put all the information in at the beginning. You don't have to input anything. You need to print the information out, and then you ask the 3 questions. After you ask the 3 questions, it's a simple input, and the input goes into the term mark, student, and course. So it'll get you assignment 8A. Then what happens? Assignment 8B, we're going to find some averages. So let's just talk a little bit about that. Imagine we have all these students and all these courses, and I'd like to know what is the average for this student. We'd have to add up all those marks, divide by 5, and that would give us the average. Okay, what would the code look like? We'd have all the information in an array. We would need 2 for loops because we've got 2 dimensions. We're going to hold the student constant and then add up all their course marks. So you know how to find an average. You do that making sum equals sum plus something. So we're adding the term mark for that student in that course. We do that 5 times, divide by 5 to calculate an average, and then go back up and move on to the next student. So what does that do? It holds the student constant, add those 5 marks, divides by 5, moves on to the next student. And so that will find the average of a collection of marks. Okay, that looks fairly straightforward, and I've got a little gift for you. You get to just copy and paste this code for 8B, and then what do you need to do? So your next step after you copy and paste the code is to then find the average of the courses. So what am I asking for there? We've found the average of the students by holding the student constant and changing the courses. How do you find the average of the courses? What you want to do this time is you want to hold the course constant and change the students. So I gifted you with the average of the students. You're going to figure out what you need to change to find the average of the courses. So again, when we found the average of the students, we held the student constant, changed the courses. When we found the average of the courses, we hold the course constant, change the student. How would that work? When we had the student constant change the courses, this was the order we did the loops. What do you think you do if you have to do the opposite? That's close to the whole program. All right, see how you do with the assignment 8s? They're interesting, they'll be good for you. You'll have a much better idea of how arrays work when you finish these.